I never thought I'd watch my own wife fall head over heels for the gym like it was her new religion. At first, I laughed it off. People get obsessed with hobbies. They go all in, talk nonstop, and then it fades. But this wasn't fading. This was consuming her. And it wasn't the workouts that got her glowing. No, it was a man. Every day, she'd mention his name. This so-called alpha male strutting around her gym. She'd gush about his arms, his abs, his strength, painting him like some mythic warrior out of a movie. But the worst part? The comparisons. You could learn a thing or two from a real man like him. She'd sneer, eyes locking on me with that crooked little smirk. I'd force a laugh, bite my tongue, pretend it didn't hurt. But every word hit me like a jab in the ribs. I'd lie awake at night, hearing her voice echo in my head, hearing that phrase, real man. It dug in deep, cutting past my pride and into my very bones. Still, I stayed quiet. What was I supposed to do? Throw a tantrum over some gym crush? I told myself she'd get bored, move on. But in my gut, I knew better. This wasn't passing. This was growing. Then came the night she crossed the line. She burst through the door, beaming like she'd just won the lottery. "There's a fitness event this weekend," she declared. "We're going. No question. No invitation. Just an order." Before I could answer, she drove the knife deeper. "Just try not to embarrass me, okay? There'll be real men there." Her words clung to me like acid. I clenched my jaw, gave her a stiff nod, but inside something cracked. Something raw. I didn't let it show. Not yet. I slipped on my jacket, followed her to the car, and swallowed the storm brewing in my chest. The drive was torture. She hummed along with the radio, tapping the wheel, carefree. Me? I sat stone silent, staring out the window at the blur of passing lights. My fists balled tight in my lap, my chest heavy, my mind racing. Who was this woman beside me? The woman I married had vanished, replaced by someone who looked at me like dead weight. When we finally pulled into the gym parking lot, my stomach twisted. Cars jammed the place, headlights cutting through the night. And right then I realized, I wasn't just stepping into a fitness event. I was walking into enemy territory. And whatever waited for me inside, it wasn't going to be pretty. The gym's parking lot was alive like a carnival, headlights flashing, bass rattling the windows, people swarming toward the entrance in packs. To me, it didn't feel like a party. It felt like I was marching straight into a firing squad. My wife, though, she was glowing. She fixed her lipstick in the mirror, tossed her hair, and strutted across the pavement like she owned the place. Not once did she look back to see if I was beside her. Inside, the noise hit me like a wall. Music, laughter, the clang of weights. Everywhere I looked, people looked carved from stone. Trainers, influencers, fitness junkies who lived for the spotlight. The air stank of sweat, cologne, and ego. I knew instantly, I didn't belong here. And then I saw him. Her so-called alpha male. He was everything she'd bragged about, and worse. Huge, confident, smirking like the room existed just to admire him. The second he spotted us, his grin spread wide, like he'd been waiting all night for this moment. He didn't walk over. He prowled, cutting through the crowd like a lion closing in on prey. "Hey, you must be the husband," he boomed, loud enough for the whole gym to hear. Every word dripped with mockery. Before I could answer, he leaned in close, towering over me. "So, man, what do you bench?" The crowd chuckled. My wife laughed loudest of all, sharp, piercing, like she wanted him to know she was on his side. I gave him the truth. My number. Not flashy, but real. He didn't even blink. Just nodded like I'd confirmed what he already knew. Then he turned, slapped twice the weight on his bar, and lifted it like it was nothing. His eyes locked on me the whole time. The place erupted. Cheers, whistles, laughter. My wife doubled over, clutching her stomach, laughing harder than anyone else. Each sound stabbed through me like a blade. And then he draped his arm around her shoulders. Casual, claiming. She didn't resist. She didn't even hesitate. She looked up at him with admiration so raw it stole my breath. It was the look she used to give me. I felt my fists dig into my palms, nails cutting skin. I wanted to swing, to shout, to tear the smug grin off his face. But I swallowed it. I stood there, silent, burning alive inside. But he wasn't finished. Oh no, he was just getting started. "Let's make this interesting," he smirked, turning back to me. His voice cut through the room like a challenge in a boxing ring. "You and me. A competition. Let's see what kind of man you really are." The crowd roared, stamping, chanting. My wife clapped, her voice ringing above them all. Do it. Let's see what you've got. But she wasn't cheering for me. Her eyes were fixed on him, hungry, glowing, almost begging. And right then, I realized this wasn't just about lifting weights. This was a public execution, and they all wanted to watch me bleed. The chanting shook the walls. Phones hovered in the air, flashes popping like fireworks. Every lens pointed at me, the husband about to be humiliated. My wife stood front row, arms crossed, smirk locked in place, eyes sparkling with anticipation. She wasn't just watching. She was savoring. Every instinct screamed, walk away. Leave. Don't give them the show. But another voice, the one buried under months of smirks, jabs, and real man insults, rose up and dug in its heels. I lifted my chin. Fine. Let's do it. The alpha's grin widened. He slapped my shoulder like I was a boy, not a rival. We'll start easy, he boomed, strutting to the bench press. Plates clanged as he loaded more than most men could dream of lifting. He pressed it clean, smooth, like air itself weighed more. He leapt up, arms raised high, basking in the roars. Then it was me. I sat on the bench, palms slick, heart pounding in my ears. I pushed, grinding through every inch, my body straining. When I racked it, sweat streamed down my temples. The applause was soft, almost pitying. A golf clap. The crowd knew who the real man was. Round after round, it played out the same. Deadlifts, squats, curls. He doubled my numbers every time, never missing a chance to lock eyes with me and grin, as if to say, see, you'll never measure up. And my wife? She was his biggest fan. Cheering, clapping, leaning toward him like she couldn't get enough. When he flexed, her lips formed the word wow. Each sound of her laughter dug claws into me. But I swallowed it, kept moving, kept standing. Then came the dagger. He strutted over to her, muscles swelling, and said loud enough for me, and everyone else, to hear, you should come train with me. I'll show you what real results look like. And she smiled. Wide. Genuine. No hesitation. Maybe I will. The room spun. My fists itched to fly, my blood roared for violence. But I forced the rage back down. He wanted me to snap. That was his game, and I wasn't going to play it. Still, round after round shredded me. Sweat soaked my shirt. My arms trembled. My muscles screamed. I was losing, and everyone knew it. The jeers grew sharper, the laughter harsher. My wife nodded along, smug, as if watching a theory proven right. Her husband wasn't a real man. Then the manager stepped forward, microphone in hand, his voice booming. Final stage, he called out. The crowd hushed, leaning in. This one's not about brute strength. It's about endurance and form. The alpha cracked his knuckles, eyes locked on me, grinning like a wolf. Watch close, little man. This is where I bury you. The crowd erupted. My wife clapped like a cheerleader, but her gaze never touched me. Only him. Always him. I drew a long breath, chest burning, vision tunneling. But something inside shifted. The humiliation, the rage, the shame, they fused into something sharper, something steadier. This wasn't just about weights anymore. This was the line. And I was done letting them push me past it. Because if I went down here, I wouldn't be the only one falling. The mats were rolled out, stopwatches ready, the announcer's voice booming like a judge at an execution. Final stage, folks. Endurance and technique. No shortcuts. This is where we see who's built to last. The alpha stretched his arms wide, chest puffed like a peacock, already soaking in the victory. Then he leaned toward me, smirk razor sharp. Hope you've got more than excuses left, little man. The crowd laughed on cue. My wife laughed hardest. I gave him nothing back. Not a word. Not a glance. Just focus. The circuit looked simple on paper. Push-ups, burpees, kettlebell swings, capped with a mile run. But it wasn't strength that decided this. It was grit. It was about how much pain you could choke down before your body begged you to quit. We dropped to the mats. He exploded out the gate, blasting through push-ups like a machine. The crowd screamed his name, cameras flashing. My wife cupped her hands and shouted for him like he was her champion. Not one word for me, but I kept my pace. Steady, controlled. My arms shook, sweat dripping, but I found a rhythm. Push-ups bled into burpees. That's where his arrogance leaked through. He turned every rep into a performance, launching himself high, grinning, showboating for the crowd. This is how it's done, he shouted between breaths. Me? My face was buried in the mat. 1, 2, 3. Breath in, breath out. No wasted motion. By the kettlebells, I heard it, the shift. His grunts grew louder, his form sloppy. He yanked the weight like he was in a brawl, sweat spraying as his shoulders sagged. The crowd still cheered, blind to it. My wife clapped along, laughing when I fell a few reps behind. Then came the mile run. He bolted off like a sprinter, pounding the ground as if victory was seconds away. The mob followed him down the track, chanting his name. My wife was there at the fence, waving, screaming for him. Not me. Never me. I started slower. One breath. One step. One thought. Don't stop. Halfway through, his showmanship caught up to him. His pace faltered. His arms pumped weaker. Strides shortened. The grin vanished. Then it happened. A stumble. A wobble. And finally, collapse. He hit the ground hard, clutching his side, gasping for air. The roar of the crowd choked into silence. And every eye turned to me. I didn't break stride. My rhythm never changed. I passed him where he lay writhing, the so-called alpha, reduced to a broken heap. And the silence shifted. First whispers, then cheers, then a tidal wave of voices screaming my name. The same people who mocked me minutes ago now roared like I was the underdog who refused to die. I crossed the finish line, chest on fire, lungs shredded. But I didn't collapse. I didn't showboat. I stood tall, breathing, bleeding sweat, but standing. The announcer grabbed the mic, voice booming through the chaos. And there it is. He made it. He endured while our star contender couldn't even finish. The gym erupted. Cheers rattled the walls. And then I saw her. My wife. Her smug little smile had vanished. Her arms were crossed now, but tighter. Her eyes darted from me to the man still on the ground. For once, she didn't know where to look. I stepped closer, wiping sweat from my brow, locking my gaze onto hers. You wanted strength? My voice was steady, sharp. Here it is. Real strength isn't muscles, it's character. Her lips parted. No smirk. No comeback. Just silence. But silence speaks. And in that moment, I knew this night wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The roar of the crowd rattled through the gym, a thunder that should have felt like triumph. But all I felt was the fire still boiling inside me. Sweat dripped into my eyes, chest heaving, but I stood tall. Across the floor, the so-called alpha was crumpled on the mat, clutching his side, his legend broken. The man she worshipped wasn't a god after all, just another fool who burned out. Minutes ago, these same people mocked me. Now they surged forward, clapping my back, shouting over one another. Unbelievable, man. Didn't think you had it in you. Hell, you showed him. Their praise almost made me laugh. Almost. But I wasn't here for their approval. There was only one reaction I wanted. Hers. My wife stood frozen near the front, lips parted, hands pressed together like she didn't know whether to clap or cover her face. Her eyes darted between me and the heap on the floor. Shock, confusion, and something else I hadn't seen in years, hesitation. Finally, she stepped forward. Her hands reached for mine, her voice soft, trembling. That was incredible. I didn't know you had that in you. I stopped just short of her touch. My voice cut sharp and cold. You already made your choice. You cheered for him. Her face drained of color. Around us, the nearest spectators fell quiet, sensing the shift. Wait, she rushed out, brushing my arm like contact would undo her betrayal. I didn't mean it like that. You showed everyone tonight who you really are. That's what I wanted, to push you. A bitter laugh clawed its way out of me. No, you weren't pushing me. You were humiliating me. You wanted him to be the man I wasn't. And now that he's collapsed while I'm still standing, suddenly you're proud? I shook my head. No, that's not how this works. Her lips quivered, eyes shining with tears. She tried to blink away. She leaned closer, whispering like a plea. Please don't do this here. Let's go home. We can talk. We can fix this. But I wasn't whispering anymore. Not after everything. I turned to the crowd, my voice carrying through the silence. She wanted to see real strength. Well, here it is. Strength isn't in muscles, it's in character. And tonight, she showed everyone here that she'd rather cheer for another man than stand beside her own husband. The gym went silent. The music cut like someone had killed the power. Dozens of eyes turned toward her. The same people who heard her laugh at me now watched her stripped bare. No smirk, no superiority, just a woman exposed. She froze under their stares, shoulders sinking, face pale. For once, she looked small. I pulled my arm from her grasp. My voice was final. You made your choice. Then I turned, walking toward the doors. The cheers followed me, louder than before, echoing off the walls like a victory march. They weren't mocking this time. They weren't pitying. They were celebrating. Behind me, I could feel her eyes locked on me. Burning. Panicked. Humiliated. The woman who once cheered for another man was left standing alone, with witnesses who'd never forget what they saw. And me? I walked out with my head high, carrying something I hadn't felt in years. A clarity so sharp it scared me, because I knew this night had changed everything. And there was no going back. The ride home was suffocating. Not the easy silence of two people at peace. This was heavy, poisonous, the kind that sits on your chest until you can't breathe. She sat stiff in the passenger seat, arms crossed, staring out the window like the darkness outside had answers she didn't dare say aloud. I kept my hands tight on the wheel. No music. No words. I didn't know her a damn thing. When I cut the engine in our driveway, she finally spoke. Her voice was thin, shaking. You embarrassed me tonight. I turned my head slowly, eyes narrowing. Embarrassed you? After you cheered for him, laughed at me, let him touch you in front of everyone. You think I embarrassed you? Her shoulders snapped tight, but she pushed back anyway. You didn't have to make it public. You could have waited until we were home. I let out a cold laugh, shaking my head. So it's fine for you to humiliate me in front of 100 strangers, but the moment I stand up for myself, suddenly it's about appearances? No, not anymore. Her lips pressed tight, eyes wet. For the first time in months, the smug mask was gone. What I saw instead was fear. Fear of losing control. Inside, she tried again. Can we just put it behind us? Start fresh? I tossed my keys on the counter, studying her. The same woman who once vowed to stand beside me had stood in a gym full of strangers, cheering for another man while I fought for air. That wasn't something you just put behind you. You want a fresh start? I asked, voice steady. Then admit what you did. Her eyes dropped, fingers twisting. I was stupid. I got carried away. It was just harmless fun. My laugh was sharp, bitter. Harmless? Letting another man drape his arm over you? Laughing at me like I was a joke? Cheering for him while he mocked me? That's your definition of harmless? Her tears spilled then, streaking down her cheeks. I didn't mean to hurt you. But you did, I said flatly. And you did it on purpose. You wanted me to feel small. You compared me to him over and over, hoping I'd break. You got what you wanted, until I didn't fail. And now you're terrified of what that means. She dropped onto the couch, burying her face in her hands, sobs shaking her body. I don't know why I did it. I thought maybe if I pushed you, you'd change. That you'd become him. I finished. Her silence said everything. I stood there, watching her crumble. Finally, I spoke. I'll never be him. And if that's the man you wanted, then you married the wrong one. Her head snapped up, eyes red and desperate. No, I don't want him. I want you. But the truth weighed heavy in the air. She hadn't wanted me when it mattered most. I turned, walking toward the guest room. You already made your choice, I said over my shoulder. And it wasn't me. Her sobs echoed through the house, bouncing off walls that suddenly felt foreign, like we weren't husband and wife anymore. Like we were strangers under the same roof. And I knew deep down, tonight was only the beginning of the end. The next morning, the smell of coffee drifted down the hallway. For years, that scent meant comfort, warmth, routine. But now it smelled like desperation. Like she thought a pot of coffee could erase the wreckage of last night. I walked into the kitchen and there she was, moving around like nothing had happened. Pancakes on the griddle, orange juice poured, her hair brushed neat. And she was wearing that blue sweater I once told her was my favorite. Every detail screamed performance. Morning, she said softly, sliding a plate toward me. Her smile was thin, fragile. I made breakfast. Thought we could talk. Like we used to. I didn't sit. Didn't even glance at the plate. You think pancakes fix this? Her smile cracked. She twisted the dish towel in her hands, knuckles white. I'm trying, okay? I know I messed up. But we can move forward. We can make this right. I crossed my arms, leaning against the counter. You want to move forward? Then stop pretending last night didn't happen. Stop treating me like a broken project you can tweak until I look like him. Her eyes welled, but she forced herself to meet mine. I don't want him. I never did. Her voice faltered. I thought maybe if I compared you, pushed you, you'd wake up. You'd change. Change into what? My words were ice. Into the man you cheered for while he mocked me? The man who draped his arm around you while you smiled like you'd won the lottery? Her hand shot to her mouth, stifling a sob. I was stupid. I see that now. Please don't throw us away over one mistake. One mistake. My laugh was sharp, humorless. That wasn't one mistake. That was months of digs, weeks of comparisons, and one entire night of you cheering for another man while I stood beside you. That wasn't a slip-up. That was a decision. She reached out, fingers trembling. Please, just give me a chance to make it right. I'll quit the gym. I'll cut all contact with him. I stepped back before her hands could touch me. Don't make promises you should have lived by in the first place. The color drained from her face. She sank into a chair, shoulders shaking. Her whisper cracked through her tears. I can't lose you. You're all I have. But her words rang empty. Because when she had me, she didn't want me. Not until I stood tall in front of that crowd. Not until her alpha crumbled and she saw what she'd thrown away. I turned toward the doorway, my voice low and steady. You're realizing too late what loyalty costs. And now you're paying the price. Her sobs filled the kitchen as I walked out, leaving the untouched breakfast cooling on the table. In the hallway, I paused. For the first time in years, I didn't feel guilt over her tears. I didn't feel like it was my job to hold this marriage together with duct tape and silence. What I felt was freedom, and the look on her face told me she knew it. Freedom was the one thing she couldn't control. And once a man tastes it, he doesn't go back. The house that night felt hollow, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. No TV buzzing, no clinking dishes, no half-hearted chatter to paper over the cracks. Just silence. Heavy. Suffocating. I sat in the guest room, door cracked an inch, listening to her footsteps pacing the hallway. Every few minutes they stopped right outside. I could almost feel her presence through the wood. Then the shuffle of retreat. Again and again, like she wanted to knock but couldn't stomach what I might say. When I finally opened the door, she wasn't pacing anymore. She was curled on the living room couch, knees pulled up, a tissue crushed in her fist. Her eyes were swollen, face pale, shoulders caved in. For the first time in years, she looked small. Her voice barely carried. I know I broke something, but please tell me it's not beyond repair. I stood there studying her. This was the same woman who had laughed at me in front of strangers, who leaned into another man's arm while calling me weak, who screamed his name while I fought to breathe. Now she was begging for scraps of the very thing she trampled. You keep saying you didn't mean it, I said, my voice low, steady. But you meant every cheer, every smirk, every time you compared me to him. You wanted me to feel small, and I did. But last night, I showed you something you can't unsee. I'm stronger without your approval than I ever was with it. Her lips trembled, tears spilling freely. I don't want him. I don't want anyone else. I want you. I shook my head slowly. No, you want the version of me that humiliated your alpha, the man the crowd cheered for. But when the spotlight wasn't there, when it mattered most, you didn't want me. You never did. Her shoulders shook. I can change. I'll prove it to you. Prove it to yourself? I cut back. Because I don't trust you to prove anything to me anymore. She lurched to her feet, reaching out. Her voice cracked, desperate. Don't leave me like this. Don't just walk away. I stopped in the doorway, hands shoved in my pockets, chest heavy but steady. I'm not leaving you. I'm leaving the version of us you destroyed. Whatever's left, that's on you to figure out. The silence that followed was sharper than any fight we'd ever had. She collapsed back onto the couch, sobs tearing out of her, bouncing through the walls of the house that no longer felt like home. I returned to the guest room, stretched out on the bed, and stared at the ceiling. And for the first time in years, I felt something shift. Not happiness. Not yet. But a freedom I hadn't tasted in so long it almost felt foreign. Because she had chosen who to cheer for. And it hadn't been me. And now, she was the one left standing in the wreckage.